From Chicago's Can TV, a look at the week's events is reported in the newspapers, in the blogs and online, and on radio and TV. This is Chicago Newsroom.
And hello again. Welcome once again to Chicago Newsroom right here on Can TV. As always, we have a fun-filled week, lots of things to talk about. And I decided this week that we needed to get the perspective of Dan Miller in here to help us straighten everything out, because Dan Miller is one of those people who knows the answers to everything and has the secrets to the universe. So why not have him reveal it right here on Chicago Newsroom? That sounds like a good plan to me.
That's
Dan.
so unfair. I've never represented myself that way. You have the answer.
I've represented you
yes,
that way.
You do.
Dan, now, you know, we talked about a whole lot of stuff before the cameras roll, but one of the things we didn't talk about is how exactly do we introduce you? You're with the Heartland Institute.
That's
now,
right.
I know you from Crane Chicago Business and editor of the business section of the Chicago Sun-Times. I don't really know you that much as being with the Heartland Institute, but you were a big muckety-muck there for a while, and now you're what?
I am policy advisor. The Heartland Institute has been around 28 years. It's just a few blocks away from here, as you know, Ken. It's a libertarian think tank, national in scope, but based here in the Heartland, which is where its name comes from. 28 years of offering public policy solutions based on free markets and free people.
The Heartland Institute has a lot of history that I really just don't even want to bother talking about here right now.
It does go against your conscience. I
well,
understand
yeah,
that,
I
but
mean,
that's
you know,
okay.
it's essentially founded by money from the tobacco companies to try to convince people that. No, really, this sounds like I'm setting you up. I'm not. This is about the two of us having a conversation.
Exactly.
The Heartland Institute has done some things which I don't respect, but you know, I'm sure there are other things that we don't respect too. Let's start with the news, Dan,
Yes.
because that's our thing.
It
here.
says so right here.
It says right here, we're at the Chicago Newsroom. Can you help me understand what the heck just happened in Springfield with this pension stuff? I mean, you have Madigan saying, well, you have actually a kind of what appears to me to be a very clever sort of double cross going on, where the Democrats are saying we have to take draconian measures. We have to close health clinics. We have to, we do all these things, and we have to take away pensions, just like really to the wall. And then the Republicans are the ones who step in and say, wait a minute, you're going too far. You're doing too much here. And then the Democrats have to sort of, I don't understand this. I cannot understand what's going on.
Explain that way, nobody could. Ken, there are two issues here. One is the Medicaid system, which is billions of dollars in debt, and the state. This is the program that the state of Illinois runs to help poor people, different from Medicare, which is for old people. And then the second one is the pensions. And the reason that unraveled, and does indeed look like a strange double cross, is that the Democrats, led by Madigan, wanted to take that pension liability, which totals in the billions of dollars, and say to state and local local governments, especially school boards, you have to pay this unfunded liability. You have to make up for the shortfall in the pension thing. We're out of here.
Which, of course, we agreed to over the years.
Exactly. And that, I mean, you remember as well as I do, years ago when those pension benefits were passed and rallies in the Capitol Rotunda and people screaming and they're so happy, no concept at all about who's going to pay for this. And of course, it comes down to our kids.
Because it's easier to legislate getting the pension benefit than it is to legislate putting the money in the bank to pay for that benefit.
And it's so easy to make somebody else pay for a benefit that you're passing out. So, so what has happened? The Republicans said, wait a minute, yes, the pensions have to be changed. You have to make it much more efficient. You can't be paying these kinds of benefits, but you can't suddenly ship the burden of paying for those past benefits down to non-Chicago, downstate people in Illinois.
Well, I mean, we all know the financial situation of small and rural towns in Illinois, and I just can't even imagine that they would even be able to continue running a school system if they had to take on this pension burden.
Correct. They would have to raise property taxes, and frankly, there isn't enough money downstate to pay for all of that if they doubled and tripled and quadrupled income taxes. Now, the double cross occurs when all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but Governor Quinn says, well, I'm against this also, Mike Madigan. So Madigan gets up there in his smarmiest way and says, oh, I'm so surprised. Quinn is siding with the Republicans, those sleazeballs, and he's a sleazeball too. So Madigan walks away from this thing once again unscathed. completely innocent of any retribution that belongs on his doorstep.
But I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on
All
this,
right.
but it does seem like there was a little bit of maybe ham-fisted political trickery going on, where the Democrats, just for sake of another description, were thinking this would be kind of fun to watch the Republicans, who largely are the downstate representatives in Illinois, have to go home and tell their constituents, yeah, well, you know, I'm in favor of cutting the budget, so I did, and oh, by the way, we're going to have to close all our schools because of it. So they put the Republicans in the position of being against this very important tax cut that we needed, or not tax cut, but fiscal restraint that we had to have here in Illinois. So I guess the Republicans won that one.
They ducked underneath the high inside fastball is what they did. They they dodged it.
Well, so okay, but so that's pensions, but Medicaid is a different, as you point out quite rightly, is a very different discussion, and that one just kind of sailed through. I mean, bipartisan, both houses. We have changes to Medicaid now that are going to take. I mean, there are lots and lots of statistics. You're more than welcome to look them up for yourself. We're just looking at the big picture sort of thing here. But basically what you're talking about is many, many thousands of people who will have many, many fewer benefits than they had before. And it does sort of beg the question, how can it be that this is where we have to begin cutting benefits? I mean, how is it that it's the people who depend on these things because they have no other source of income who are the first ones in line when the chopping block falls?
Well, they were the last in line to get the benefits over the last 5 or 8 years as benefits were expanded. And remember, this is not a defined contribution plan. You don't pay in, or you don't get $100 and that's it, take care of your medical bill. They say, no, we're going to give you a covered benefit of a hip replacement. Doesn't matter how much it costs, that's what we're going to, and you need a new shoulder, you got a cold, we're going to pay for a benefit, not a defined contribution. So the result is that there's no constraint on the cost of a hip replacement. It keeps going up and up and up and up. The money keeps coming in from the federal government. The state continues to borrow and borrow and borrow, going into debt for billions of dollars. We continue to stiff the healthcare providers themselves who are taking care of those poor people you were just lamenting about, the social service agencies, the clinics that look after mentally ill or people who are blind, who are deaf. I mean, the fact that Illinois has done this on the backs of vendors who have, in good faith, provided this service over the years to the poor is just unconscionable, and yet that's what's happened. So when you say, oh, now we've got to hurt these people who were the first in line, who need it the most, well, those were the people to whom benefits were extended over 5 years when it wasn't necessary to expend it to them. Medicaid expenditures since about the last decade have more than tripled in Illinois. Illinois expenditures on Medicaid have more than tripled. The population who needs it has not tripled. This has been another way that liberals, Democrats have been able to parcel out all the benefits without taking the responsibility of paying for it.
Those damn liberals.
Ken, you're right. You're on the path to recovery, Ken.
Well, I mean, there's an interesting parallel there that once again, regardless of your political party, it's a lot easier to extend benefits to people than it is to figure out ways to pay for them. And then at some point you end up with somebody having to pay the bill, and then we end up in the kind of mess that we're in. Do you believe Pat Quinn when he says that he was put on earth to solve the pension dilemma?
I admire anybody who feels a strong calling and want. Don't you? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Don't you feel you were put on this earth to communicate, Ken? You look at your own background.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay real well, but that's what you were put here to do.
It's a rather sad earth.
I'm afraid so.
But yeah. So, all right. We have so little time and so much about which to talk today. So let's move on from Medicaid and the state of Illinois. But let's kind of stay with that issue of Medicaid because it raises this whole question about how in the name of the good Lord do you pay for any of this stuff? Because the costs of everything are rising, and I will not accept the idea that that's just because of government meddling. The cost of all medical procedures partly because of advances in science and because we all want everything new the moment it comes out. We are forced to pay lots and lots more, and we have not the money to pay for it. And somehow or other, we've gotten ourselves into this horrific situation, which I think you'd agree with as a libertarian, where only people who can afford to have decent health care, and lots of other people are left behind. So how do you resolve that dilemma? And what if there is a market solution to that, and you are an advocate of free market, I would love to hear what it is.
The main thing is to put consumers, put people such as you and me in charge of our health care. Let it be consumer driven, not government driven. Let me go back to that issue of defined benefit and defined contribution. If I say to you, Ken, I will fix your hip no matter when it goes out and no matter how much it costs, there is no reason for a doctor or a hospital to hold its costs down because it's going to get reimbursed to some great extent by the government. However, if I give you a certain amount of money, say whatever the Medicaid benefit is that goes to the poor per person, and instead of giving you say I'll fix your hip, I give you the same amount of money. Here is $1,000. It goes into a health savings account, a Medicaid savings account. You spend it the way you want it. You spend it for home health care. You can pick from any of these. I'll concede this point, a government-approved private insurance plan that'll cover different things. Maybe you and I don't need obstetric care anymore in our families. I know I don't. Nevertheless, if I get an insurance policy, it's got to cover obstetrics because that's what the state says. Let's deregulate that part. Let's open it up to some sort of competition. Through money, I'll determine if I'm going to get a hip replacement and you're going to charge me $1,000, maybe another doctor, equally qualified, will do it for $500. If I pay cash up front and not spread the payment out for 12 months, maybe I get even a bigger break. Let there be some sort of negotiation, some competition for healthcare, rather than going to this rationing plan to say, sorry, we just can't do any hip replacements anymore because they're too expensive, so nobody gets a hip replacement.
So it's okay with you that the free market would allow some physicians to charge $10,000 for that hip replacement because they do it very, very nicely in very, very nice environments?
Sure.
That's okay?
Absolutely. No problem with that at all. And I would bet, just knowing physicians and knowing the healthcare industry, because that's one of the key core competencies of the Heartland Institute, Ken, I am pretty sure I have not run into a single surgeon who does hip replacements, just to continue on with this metaphor, who would turn down poor people. All of them, in some way or another, dentists, the same way with lawyers, same way with surgeons and GPs, they all provide some sort of care for indigent or people who can't pay, or they work in clinics once a week. The capacity for charity in the healthcare industry is enormous.
How do you explain the just spiraling costs of healthcare?
There was no constraint on it. Through Medicare, and I'm on Medicare, and I know the system can work incredibly well, through having no cap on what's going to be paid for the cost of it, because it's all a third party, and I have got no control over what my expenditures are going to be. The cost just kept going up and up and up. There was no reason not to. Same way, say, with college tuition. There was no, if college costs are going up because, say, college professors want more money and the cost of college education rises 5 times the rate of inflation, but it's going to be paid for because the government will provide student loans, then of course the price is going to continue to rise.
So you see that as a failing of government. You see that as a failing of the intrusion of government.
Consistently. It prevents competition. It restricts entry of competitors. It encourages and rewards people for inefficiencies. Yeah.
What is the role of government?
To protect my liberty. Now, underneath that umbrella comes an awful lot of stuff going on. But yeah, that's basically it. Not
well, I mean, so does inspecting cows for mad cow disease protect your liberty?
That would not be the first thing that I would do as a libertarian to reduce the role of government, reducing safety inspection of food. That's not the first thing I do.
Does repairing the Golden Gate Bridge qualify?
Same thing. But that's an interesting thing. The transportation sector. Now here's an area, Ken, where we can definitely agree. People who cause costs, people who drive across that bridge, they ought to pay for the rehab and the painting of that bridge. You and I here in Illinois, who have not driven across that bridge, at least not for umpteen years, why should we be sending money to California to pay for that bridge repair?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because that's my country. Because that's part of the infrastructure of the country that I know and love and want to improve and to grow and to be more and more vital every single day.
Is that the
and
best
the way,
use
yes,
of the money?
Because the way
That's the best use?
Well, but the best thing we can do as a culture, as a society, is to be an interconnected society where a sort of an injury to one is an injury to all, a benefit to one is a benefit to all. I don't use schools. I don't have children. So there are many people like me who don't believe we should pay school taxes. I don't happen to believe that's true. I'm proud that I pay taxes to support schools, public schools that employ good, solid teachers who teach all the rest of the children, because I benefit when those children are educated. I do not benefit when those children are not well educated.
That's true.
Okay,
that's true.
So I don't believe in this smorgasbord deal of a la carte picking and choosing about paying just for what you use. I think we should pay for the things that make liberty is not enough. Okay, you want a government to support to guarantee you liberty.
That's right.
I want a government to guarantee me a country that is a respected beacon in the world and a place that people want to come to and help it become stronger and even better.
Okay, 2 points.
That's what I want.
And that's an admirable goal. And I don't think, frankly, that we would end up different on where we want this goal to be. It's how we get there. Those same teachers are the ones who have caused our pension problems to be an enormous burden on us.
They're not the ones who've caused the problem. The problem has been caused by a representative government that we just talked about before, that finds it easier to lavish benefits on people than it is to pay for them.
Because the teachers
But that's not the teachers' fault. Let's not vilify the teachers for that.
I'm not vilifying them. I'm saying that the teachers demanded and were accommodated in their demands for very lavish pensions. Same way with public employee unions.
Right.
And that's one point. The same people. So when you say, oh yes, I'm all in favor of education, it's for the kids. It isn't for the kids. Come on, Ken. It goes to the teachers' pensions. It goes to a 9-month work week. Secondly, that bridge. How do you know that there isn't a better bridge that should be rehabbed and painted other than the Golden Gate?
You mean like the privately owned bridge that goes between Detroit and Windsor that has been held to 2 lanes all these years and has held all that traffic back because it's privately owned and because the family that owns the bridge basically owns the local legislatures and won't allow the governments of Canada and the United States to build a common bridge between them?
No.
Because the private sector is holding it up? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
No, I am not talking about that. I'm talking about any bridge that's owned by a municipality, a state, a county. I'll stick in your world for this one. I just am absolutely certain that there are bridges that are falling down that need repair a lot quicker than the Golden Gate needs to be repainted and rehabbed and spend tens of thousands of dollars on fireworks because it's the 75th anniversary. Please, Ken, come on. Be reasonable about where we're going to spend our money. My money.
Our money.
Our money? Right.
It's not just your money.
It's not, but man, I bought a fixed income, man. A lot of it just disappeared, I'll tell you.
Hey, I'm a pensioner from the city of Chicago.
Oh, isn't that
so
great,
I mean, yeah,
too?
no, really, let's not even talk about that. Do you know we only have 10 minutes left? I mean, I
thought we just sat down.
Dan, you're
What's else on the list, Ken? What about education? Can I go back to that?
Yeah.
Where do you stand on choice in education? Vouchers? Good, bad?
It's a really interesting issue.
Really?
No, it is, because this is fascinating to me because I tend to be further on the left of the spectrum, certainly, than you are. But I'm also very much a guy who believes in choice. I think that we are intelligent beings and we should be able to make our own choices, and we shouldn't have our choices made for us. But I also understand that there are places and times in which choice, well...
No, go ahead.
No, I don't want to go there.
No, choice... Oh.
Well, in terms of schools, in terms of the public schools, it's very much to me like roads and transit and the other things that we build webs of interconnection and rely on. We need to have that web as unbroken and as uninterrupted as we possibly can, because once you start ripping pieces of it apart, then it has no value any longer.
Therefore? vouchers are the way to go because it will allow more people to create more schools?
I don't believe that.
Why?
I don't believe that, and I'm not sure that this is kind of like so many other issues that we face, where you really kind of get down to more of a personal belief than actual numbers and data. But I've never seen data on the other side that supports it either. It's just another belief. We spent the first 200 years of our existence in this country building what is largely an effective and admired public education system.
While,
it has failed us.
Discriminating against Catholics, of course, the Blaine Amendment, and certainly we didn't help blacks, African Americans. Certainly, I mean, yes, admirable in some sense, but can an awful lot of flaws. But go ahead. What was good about it?
I'll concede those issues. Because I didn't say that I thought it was perfect, and nor is it by any means perfect. But the spirit of constructing it is a spirit that I find most admirable.
Yes.
Okay? And I don't believe that picking apart pieces and offering some people some improvements at a cost which tears apart the fabric of everything else, I don't believe that ultimately helps us as a culture and as a society. How does vouchers do that? It does that because it takes money out of the pool that otherwise would support public schools.
No, the money goes to the student. I mean, here's the money. You little Bobby Davis over here is going to go to school. You've got $5,600. You can spend it as you wish.
How far down the road can you take this?
All the way.
No, you can't, Dan. You really can't, because you end up with
you end up with more schools doing more and different kinds of things rather than the school system doing the same thing that makes kids dumber.
You have some schools performing reasonably well, but there were schools performing reasonably well before. There appears to be, and again, I don't pretend to be an expert. I don't pretend to be able to throw the numbers.
Matter.
We're having a very impressionist
You're
conversation here, right? It is my impression, and I think there is data to support this, that the privatized schools, the charters and other schools that are becoming a part of our milieu, are performing at or about the same level as comparable public schools were performing before them. Some of them are brilliant, some of them are magnificent, others are abject failures, and most are right about in the middle.
You just described every sector of the economy. But there is one benefit. I'll tell you. And this is it. There's one benefit over and above the some win and some lose, and it's this: I can send my kids to a school I choose, where the teaching, where the curriculum, where the kind of education he's going to get is the kind of education I, as a taxpayer, want for my child. I've got some choice in the matter. I don't have to take what the National Education Association says, what the Illinois Teachers Association says has to be taught. I don't have to put my kids in a curriculum I don't agree with spiritually or financially. I can pick my own way. So even if there are failures, and there certainly are in the charter school or private school system, even if there are, people deserve to get what they choose to do.
I guess it really comes down to something very fundamental about a sense of communitarianism, that I believe that teachers are really probably the most important people that we have. I mean,
that's kind of elitist, isn't it?
No.
Yes, it is.
Well, I do. I can't think of a profession, honestly. I can't think of a profession, and that includes neurosurgeons.
I don't want to have a hierarchy of professions, and it doesn't matter.
I didn't say there were. I just said that I find myself really resentful of this kind of incipient movement to victimize teachers as the problem with our country today. They're not the problem. I don't believe they were ever part of the problem. I believe the problem has been that we as a society, and boy, this is a real point of disagreement. I believe that we are cheap. I believe that we're not willing to invest in our culture and in our society to the level that we need to in medicine, in research, in schools.
That's why so many Americans are going to abroad for medical treatment, for higher education.
They're going
for science.
abroad.
They're not going abroad. They're coming. The whole world is coming here because that system works, and it works best in some sort of free market sense at the higher levels.
It works well in that sector that is reserved for the free market. But you see, part of the problem, Dan, is that the free market in our country gets to work as well as it does. And believe me, I agree that it does. I'm an Apple fan, for God's sake. So how can you not believe in the free market,
See,
right?
we're right
Except
together.
for the fact that Steve Jobs would still be a minor functionary in a cubicle somewhere if the federal government hadn't built him the internet, if the federal government hadn't done all of the structural things that needed, because there was a day, and you and I are old enough to remember it, when this country believed in research and development, and not just targeted research and development at how can we make more money, but how can we build the structures, the physical and the emotional structures that we need to make this a better country than it is.
Like all those great solar panels that Solyndra built.
Oh, come on.
But that's what happened. That is inherent. That is inevitable in a government system that's out there trying to pick winners and losers.
But of course, that never happens in the private sector.
Yes, it does, and the investors take the hit. I take a hit on Solyndra because the president decides to throw $430 million in there, and that's not an isolated case, Ken.
It's just
it's one of a dozen, and one of 3 dozen. They can't pick winners and losers. They don't know how to do it because they don't have any skin in the game. All they're doing is passing out more benefits.
So you name me one of those, and I'll name you a corporation that's done the same thing. But that's not. But it's a false argument, Dan. We need both. We absolutely need a rock solid.
We need Solyndra.
We need a rock solid, strong corporate sector, and we need a rock solid, strong people-represented government, so that the two of them together can balance and, when necessary, fight one another and keep one another in check. There is the only thing that I fear worse than that unchecked government you fear is that unchecked corporate.
Yes, I knew that was coming.
and it's so. It is absolutely so. But that doesn't mean that I don't fear the unchecked government. I do, because you see, maybe it's just possible I'm more of a libertarian than you are.
Ken, you think I'm not afraid of an unchecked business person out there, or the business industrial political climate that exists?
Well, I would hope you are. I would hope you're terrified of it.
I'm very terrified of that.
And I'm terrified of the government, so we've agreed on that.
We have. What's next on the list?
You know what's next on the list? We got about 48 seconds left. So our cameras, I'm just going to throw this question out. Do cameras make us safe?
They make us more criminals. I mean, they expose criminals. Ken, I cannot drive 20 miles I live in Rogers Park. I've got churches, I've got schools, I've got everything around my house and where I drive, on Pratt, on Western. Am I supposed to drive 20 miles an hour for the rest of my life? No, I'm not going to do that.
If you don't want a $100 ticket sent in the mail,
I don't. But all you're doing is making me a criminal.
An assumed criminal.
Oh, God. Now, tanning beds. Now, that's where we need government to get involved in.
We agree on this. No, not the tanning beds. I'm talking about the assumed criminal nature of things.
Yes.
I mean,
it doesn't make us safer. No, it doesn't.
We didn't even talk about Rahm Emanuel's first
year. And the Sun-Times, our favorite topic.
The Sun-Times. Oh, Dan, we've got 15 seconds left. Dan, I'm so sorry. I showed this to a bunch of people and said, these are the new columnists of the Sun-Times. Can you identify them?
They're celebrities, Ken. Every one of them is a celebrity. Who?
That's our problem. We don't have celebrities.
There's no weatherman on there. That's what a celebrity is in Chicago. It's the weatherman.
You were the business editor of the Sun-Times. We wanted to spend time talking about it, and we wasted all this time on
typical liberal, just taking up your own agenda.
Typical conservative.
Move, we adjourn.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Chicago Newsroom. It's a community service.
Nobody's been watching this.
Of course, you can find us here on cable. But as far as free enterprise is concerned, you can also watch us online at this address. Go to the private company that supports this thing. It's called iTunes.
Go iTunes. No wonder you're a Mac supporter.
I'm Ken Davis. What have we done? I'll see you next time, if the private sector will permit it, right here on CAN TV,
the government will come in and do it.
Of CAN TV. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.